Okay. Yeah, and I gotta say this is coming as a brother, fellow evangelical. But I guess as I say this, I'm probably outing myself as maybe more of a free agent than I'm willing to recognize. And I do have one more prop just to like note that like gargoyles in the corner, I am thinking of you. But the problem with evangelicalism is, and we're talking specifically about massive cultural, moral, ethical norms. And evangelicalism has been very ineffectual in affecting the broader culture in this area. This is the Aaron Renn points that like we just don't produce institutions that are able to speak on a cultural level. On the grounds, there's a lot of good that is being done that needs to be disseminated to the broader body. But on the issue of like reproductive technology, like even we do have a few really thoughtful guys working in this area, like Matthew Lee Anderson, and he's an outlier. Like he is not terribly well listened to beyond his academic sphere. So even when we're trying to do good work, it does not seem to matter because at this point in our development, we don't have, I don't know, like the horsepower or the breadth or the corporate size to be able to affect the world in that way.
I'm a little ADHD, to be honest. Like on like I like have a million things that I want to say in response to that, but I do just want to jump in and ask the question for you guys. Like this goes into the Paul Kingsnorth, I don't believe in Christian civilization question. Like what does healthy institutions look like on if evangelicals created institutions that did affect the world in that way? Like there's that optimal grit question. Like what is necessary in the moment, and like when does it get out of control, and when do they become tyrants? And I just want to sort of say like I really appreciate the idea of locality, like local church bodies as being the standard personally. Like and here's the deal, like our church is a vacuum for the local community, in my opinion. Like we suck a lot of people in. And then my dad, who is the pastor, from the stage says something like, you know, like God does not want you to have premarital sex. And he'll say that outright on a Sunday morning, you know, and then the next Sunday he'll marry a couple people in his office, you know? And so it's like that happens, like it's working to where the line that is drawn, theologically speaking, like does have an effect in our little kingdom, you could say. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Like someone in the comments section, who was it? Ron Zach said, yeah, if you thought evangelicalism was ineffectual, look at Catholicism and Orthodoxy. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, only the evangelicals took the social instructions of their church seriously. Like, not to be rude, but just to be honest, the Catholics just didn't. You know, maybe they did confession afterwards, but like there was virtually no difference between the sexual behavior of seculars and even kids coming from pretty devout Catholic families, in my very, personal experience. And I know there's a lot of data in my social circles backing that one up. And, but the question is how, like, it really, how you need to have trust in the institution such that when the pastor like Eric's dad gets up and says, you should not be having premarital sex, you should not be cohabitating, that's wrong. And then, the next week, some, maybe cohabitating couples are like, yeah, sorry about that. Okay, could you marry us so that we can rectify the situation, right? That takes authority, but it also takes respect from those of the authority. And so where does that respect come from? And then kind of connecting to Matt's point, handling all of these sexual ethic questions, whether it's cohabitation or artificial wombs or IVF or frozen embryos or genetic screening of embryos or all of these other things that we can imagine, it takes a little bit of highbrow horsepower to come up with good theological answers for that. How do we get the people who have the horsepower to do that, to pay attention to that? How does that make its way to what the pastor says on Sunday? How does that turn into a culture of trust that can even, engage with that. But how do you keep those intellectuals accountable to what they're saying too? And all those sorts of things. And I think that that's something that really, it needs to happen, and it's not happening very well.
Well, I want to make 2 points about Aaron Renn's point, because for the most part, I swallowed it, and I'm increasingly beginning to doubt it. Number one, if evangelicals lack so much influence, why do everywhere from Blue Church, mass media, CNN, MSNBC, why are they always complaining about evangelical influence in the country? And this includes people in the progressive side of the Christian Reformed Church. I won't name their names here and now, because so on and so forth. But some people in the Christian Reformed Church are making a tidy career going around the country complaining about evangelical institutional influence in America. And the second point is, if in fact you say Christians must exert their influence through institutions, and you say all we've seen in the last 50 years is the decline of the influence of institutions, maybe the evangelicals were onto it earlier, because they knew, I'm not going to put all my money into the downtown brick church that in 1945 was just kind of the center of everything. I'm going to go out to the suburbs, and my mega church is going to be right next to Costco, where everybody's traveling to shop, because those are the people having children, and they're not having children in the city. So therefore, if you look at who's actually going into the future, it's those dreaded evangelicals, or the URC people, with all of their children and grandchildren from their grandfather and their grandmother, or maybe a few from the LDS who had multiple grandmothers.